The Red Shoes, one of the most popular films ever made. The tragic story of a ballerina's love for two men is romantic filmmaking at its best. The brilliant color, music, and dance have a decidedly Hungarian flavor. Not so surprising when you realize that its co-creator was Emmerich Pressburger, who fled Hungary just before the Nazis invaded Budapest. For decades, Hungarian artists were exiled by the whims of history. Alexander Korda, with his talented brothers Vincent and Zoltan, came to London in the early 30s and rapidly became more British than the British. Films like his 1942 classic, The Jungle Book, combined lavish production values with vivid storytelling. With art direction by brother Vincent, direction by brother Zoltan, and music by fellow Hungarian Nicholas Rocha, these emigres helped bring British production up to Hollywood standards. The parade of Hungarian film talent extends far beyond these few. From the earliest Hollywood moguls to today's top cinematographers, they have made striking contributions to world cinema. This is Rita Gam for World of Film. And in this program, we will meet the contemporary Hungarian filmmakers who continue to create cinema magic. How is it that this tiny country of 11 million souls, buried in the geographic center of Europe, and speaking its own unique language, managed to export so many film greats to London, Paris, Hollywood? King Vidor, Vilma Banki, Paul Lucas, Bela Lugosi, and Michael Curtiz, the director of Casablanca, who was known in Hungary as Mihai Curtiz. And what about the artists who stayed at home? The men and women who survived a world war and years of Stalinist repression to create a body of work that ranks among the best of Europe's post-war cinema. That's what I've come to Hungary to find out. The streets of Budapest are teeming with crowds. Shop windows are filled with goods, though not everyone can afford to buy them. The Red Star has been removed from the Parliament Dome. As Hungary embarks on a new era, actors and directors were eager to share their stories with me. People remember the dark days of Nazi occupation and the rounding up of Hungarian Jews. The liberation by the Soviet army ironically imposed a rigid new order. The cult of Hitler replaced by the cult of Stalin. Ivan Darvas was one of Hungary's leading romantic stars.
I was sentenced to prison. I served 2 years. Then I worked 4 years in a factory. And I felt a certain amount of frustration, no question about it. And that's what happened to you when you confronted the regime.
Director Paul Sándor, now an active producer, had his own problems with the regime.
Many times. I had to recut my films, or I had to face some other stupid professional nuisance, even today. But it doesn't matter. I take it as part of life. I myself chose to stay here.
In fact, Hungarians have always found ways to speak their minds. Even if the script was censored, the images conveyed the truth. Zoltan Fabri's masterpiece, Merry-Go-Round, beautifully captured the courage of a young girl who refuses to allow her spirit to be broken. The 1956 uprising lasted only 12 days, but its impact was long-lasting. The world watched helplessly as Russian tanks imposed Soviet authority. But when it was all over, the ground rules for artists had changed. Indeed, Hungarian cinema confidently embarked on its golden age, with the state underwriting 24 pictures a year. Filmmakers often chose historical subjects, where the antagonists could be the Turks or the Austrians. István Szabó's Colonel Radel, with the great Austrian actor Klaus-Maria Brandauer, dramatized the struggle of one career officer in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, another society that demanded total obedience.
Somehow, whatever I do, all my works reflect the past, the history of Hungary. I started to learn about the last 100 years from stories and anecdotes told by my parents and grandparents around the family's dinner table on Saturdays and Sundays. No matter what the story was about, the very strong influence of historical events that took place was evident. Here in Middle Europe, where we live, people's life was shaped by the political and historical changes, and in each person's life story, history is present in the form of an always menacing pressure.
Your choice of Klaus-Maria Brandauer is absolutely brilliant. I'd like to know why you didn't choose a Hungarian actor to play the part of Colonel Redl and in Mephisto.
The subject of these two screenplays, of these two films, it was not only Hungarian, it was Middle European, and both heroes of these films, they were German-speaking characters. So I thought I need actors, they knew it, what is it to move German, you know, to behave German. So I was sure at the beginnings too that I need a German-speaking actors.
Refused entrance into the inner circle of the military establishment, Radel becomes a spy and is caught. The scene where he is forced to take the gentleman's way out is a tour de force of acting and directing. Szabó's earlier film, Mephisto, established both director and star as international celebrities. Especially after the film won an Oscar as Best Foreign Film. The films of Carolee Mock have a devoted following. His controlled use of color adds a whole dimension to a very moral night. A woman comes to visit her son in the city, unaware that he is residing in a house of prostitution. The girls take turns persuading the old lady that they are simple creatures, each living a sweet domestic life.
Karolina. Kelepei doktor úr édesanyja. Tessék helyet foglalni.
Igen.
Ők a bentlakók.
Igen. Nálunk is már este 9-kor sötét volt a kastélyban.
I asked Mark why so many of his films seem to be about women.
It starts in the moment when God created man and woman. He made women much better than men. They have the real values, the real talent, the real humanity, the real warmth and everything else important in life. We are full of violence, self-consciousness, or what the hell. And we don't realize how much we actually get from the women. And I have no idea why it had happened this way, but in my best films, the main characters are women. And somehow it is always their personality, their character, their existence. It turns out to be more meaningful than men's.
The only films Peter Gothar saw when he was growing up were Hungarian and Russian. American films were only permitted to be seen after 1956. Peter, what's the appeal of that wonderful film of yours, Time Stands Still?
The most important thing was my choice of subject matter. The film dealt with a period that was not touched in Hungary yet, and it provided a familiar image to the American audience who was well aware of this same period. We're talking about the 60s and the musical trends and spiritual movements connected with the time. Americans had no idea how it all happened in Hungary.
Time Stands Still is considered a definitive portrait of disaffected youth in the 1960s.
I'm not saying that I wasn't influenced by American films, but the directors I preferred were the ones who made the so-called B-movies of the 60s and 70s.
Peter Gardos, one of the most gifted of a new generation of Hungarian film directors, is one of a small minority that didn't train at the National Film Academy. Like many of the foreign directors he admires, his academy was the local movie house. Have you been influenced by any American film directors or European or Hungarian film directors? If so, who?
Well, I have a few films I consider almost as important as the Bible. Truffaut's Jules and Jim, for instance. Now I go to see that film at least once a year. It's that kind of film where you just sit and watch it and it gets inside you. The same thing happens for me with Fellini's Amarcord. That's simply a fundamental film. From time to time, I find myself going back to it, finding new scenes. I just can't help going back to it again and again. To give you some American examples, I love Bogdanovich's Last Picture Show, Paper Moon. You can see that I'm attracted to films that are personal and poetic and true to life.
In his stunning film Hupingkopf, a group of school children take an abandoned handcart for a joyride during the 1956 revolution. Gardos himself was 8 years old in that year.
Tartós béke, állj közénk és harcolj érte! Egy a jelszó, tartós béke, állj közénk és harcolj érte! Hasra!
Miklós Jancsó is the Hungarian director most admired in Western Europe. His first success was The Roundup in 1965. He's been busy filming all over Europe ever since. In a Jancsó film, the actors never sit down. The camera never stops moving.
Сойдите все вниз. Бегом. Сойдите все вниз.
Jancsó's long tracking shots, gradually moving his actors into and out of close-up without editing, have become his signature.
Сторонитесь, сторонитесь.
Отделите, пожалуйста, красных от белых.
У нас нет красных и белых. Здесь все больные люди.
You know, the trademark of my style is that a take lasts as long as we have film in the camera. It's a much easier thing to do, because we don't have to say, okay, now we'll do a shot of you, and then of you, and so on. Well, I would end up with material that I wouldn't be able to edit. The fact is that that's what everyone calls the Jancsó style.
Tell me, what did the Soviets think of your films?
For a long time, the Russians believed that I was a director of short films because in the Soviet Union, all my films were shown in an edited short version. My films were cut in half. I was famous as a director of short films.
Jancsó's son, Peter, is a gifted cinematographer who works with his mother, the remarkable Marta Metsoros, admired today as one of the most talented women filmmakers anywhere. How did you become a director, Marta?
Oh, it's a very long story, but it's better I say in Hungarian.
I was 17 years old in 1950. A 17-year-old girl wants to become a director. It was the same as to say that I want to go to the planet Mars, to become a man from Mars. Everybody took me for crazy. They told me to see a doctor, a shrink, and I wasn't admitted to the academy in Budapest. Anyway, I spoke Russian, and I applied to the academy in Moscow. I succeeded. I got to Moscow in 1950, and I got back in 1956, just one day before the revolution started on October 23rd.
Films like Metsoros' Diary for My Daughter show a personal as well as political side to Hungarian cinema. On a long train ride, a girl imagines what the courtship of her parents must have been like.
Strangely enough, the film industry is one of the few in the cultural field where lots of women work. We have at least 4 or 5 women directors who always work, like Livia Giamatti, Judith Elek, and new directors like Ildiko Szabo, Maria Sos, and Ildiko Enyedi.
In addition to its imposing array of directors and cinematographers, Hungary produces first-rate actors. Géza Garas is one of the country's most beloved figures, a warm and versatile character actor who loves his craft.
There's one film that played a major part in my life. Football in the Good Old Days. It was a story of an obsessed laundromat owner, and he sets out to make a team. He starts to get the people for the team, guys who think the same way and want to do something with their life, who have passion. And it doesn't matter where do they accomplish it, downtown or uptown, on Broadway or in India. And the character of this little cleaner is very dear to my heart.
How do you feel about Hollywood?
Rita, would you ask a Muslim whether he would want to go to Mecca? How can you ask an actor about Hollywood?
Marie Torasik exploded onto the European scene in 1956. When she won Best Actress at Cannes as the girl in Merry-Go-Round. She was still in her teens. Work with Hungary's top directors followed. Miklós Jancsó, Caroline Mock.
Yes.
Jessica Lange had to learn Hungarian. in order to play this scene with her in Costa Gavros's The Music Box. Given your great talent, and you've become the greatest actress in Hungary, what's kept you here? You could have worked around the world. Was it your personal life?
I started to do films in 1955. The walls between East and West were very strong, and one could experience two different worlds with different values. I wanted to become an actress, a Hungarian actress. This is my mother language. Only this language could I become an actress, and I had such a strong desire that I turned down invitations from countries of the Eastern Bloc too. The Hungarian language was had a very beautiful quality. There is no difference between masculine or feminine in the use of the word for actor or actress. Talking about myself, I always say, I'm an actor.
Torosik is now at the pinnacle of her career, playing right character parts, like the grandmother in Hupinko. At the time of our interview, she was playing roles in two plays at two different Budapest theaters on alternate nights. The younger generation of acting talents is proving that it can take its place alongside the greats of the past. Karoli Eperjes has a dynamic face capable of changing dramatically. From the disintegrating father of El Dorado to the doomed soldier of Colonel Radel. Indelible portraits by an actor of fantastic versatility. Eperjes has been compared with Depardieu and De Niro. Comparison he's tired of hearing.
Every press conference, they always ask me if I've ever heard of De Niro or Depardieu. I always say yes. But have you ever asked Mr. De Niro or Mr. Depardieu if they've ever heard of me?
Dorothea Udvaras is another artist with an astonishing range, from violence to tenderness, often within the same scene. Like most Hungarian actors, she manages to juggle a stage and screen career.
With me, it happens quite often that I start my day with a rehearsal in the theater. As soon as I'm finished, they pick me up to take me to the shooting. I work there till about 6 p.m., and then they bring me back to the theater to do the play. After the play, they might even take me back to the studio to work on the film, and it happens on a regular basis.
With the recent changeover in government and fewer films being made, it's more necessary than ever. Sound stages and equipment are ready, willing, and waiting for the future to arrive, like the artists themselves. Meanwhile, foreign co-productions filmed locally bring hard currency to Hungary. Films like Force March, made with American investors and an American star, in this case, Chris Sarandon, playing a Hungarian poet. But not all Hungarians are happy with co-productions.
I'm really afraid. There are two opposite directions. Very bad and very commercial films will come out, and there is a possibility that a few exceptional, very good films will be made, but only with compromises and fights. Today, the toughest task in Eastern Europe is to find money for culture, and this is something really essential in the case of filmmaking. I worry about the quality.
Hello, bárány.
Is that Maggie Smith speaking Hungarian? And isn't that Christopher Plummer? The film is Lillian Love, an American adaptation of a Molnar classic, shot in New York and directed by the distinguished Karoli Mock. A slight variation on the co-production theme. Tell me about the changes that will take place now.
So it's a very simple thing. We have waited this moment years and years and years to get this freedom that we now have. more freedom and less money for filmmaker.
Coach, you know, in Hollywood, with the big studios, people say it's more money with less freedom.
Another serious problem faces Hungarian films in particular. Critic András Kepes elaborates.
The problem is that we are a small language. So if you produce a Hungarian movie, you cannot sell it in other countries. People in other countries usually don't like dub pictures, especially in the US. Even if you produce a commercial movie, the movie audience is so small in this country, and the competition with the American commercial movies is so huge that it's almost impossible to make a self-supporting movie in such a small country.
In the past 10 years, government subsidies for films have virtually stopped. In a free enterprise market, new capital from the West is urgently needed. Here, in Elec Judith's Memories of a River, the villagers are urged to emigrate from Hungary to the paradise of America. Today, vital resources are needed to flow the other way, from America to Hungary.
The last 40 years we've just lived through, with all of the political horrors, was also the time when we created everything we have now. We have to be able to re-evaluate what that time was about, to keep the good and the original, but to present it in a way that could raise the attention of the whole world.
To make movies, you need three things, basically. The same that you need to make war. Money, money, and more money.
The most important contribution of the Hungarian film is the continuance of being different, of staying Hungarian. In Hungary, I think so many things happened in the last years, and it had a very strong effect on people. Their lives changed. We have so much to talk about. And if we tell the story in a vibrant way and with honesty, maybe it can serve others as a lesson.
Great actors, great directors, great cinematographers, beautiful locations. Hungary is ready and willing. If only its talent can learn other languages, Hungary will become a force in the international film market. Its people have always been resilient and resourceful. They've adapted before, they'll adapt again.